Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at edenjustbe.com. And let's get this party started. Okay, and then I have to charge up before we begin. You feel free to charge up or do however you want to as well. Sometimes, okay, there's a lot too. Oh, okay, Eden. I this already. Love it. With Eden, did I already say that? Okay, Eden would just be Spiritual Boom, an association with the Grassroots Warrior Network, and welcome me. And Jennifer, we said your last name multiple times, so I do not mess it up, which I have a tendency to do that. So I'm going to say Jennifer Wrobel.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to pat myself on the back. And so please welcome, say hello.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, certainly welcome out of Arizona. All right. So I figured today, I don't really have a lot to tell you guys because normally I give a little blurb, but there might be some things when I'm talking to Jennifer that come out. So I want to go ahead and read you her bio just so you know some of what we're going to be talking about today. Let me clear my voice. Jennifer is a talented healing artist with over 25 years in practice and over 10 years teaching energy healing. Since early childhood, she has been communicating with angels, ascended masters, celestial beings, and ancestral guides. Get this. Healing is her passion, her art, her life purpose. Her work is unique, potent, and life-changing. Since 2016, Angelic Earth Resonance, which is her gig, is the channeled culmination of her various gifts and many years of experience. Jennifer's body of work through this is blended, given energy work, somatic body work, angelic light work, and sound healing. Each session is an inspired work of art being led and orchestrated by surrendering to divine presence. She practices her work in a deep state of presence, which is often referred to in shamanism as hollow bones. The state of awareness, let me take a breath here, I'm feeling it, allows spirit to guide her and come through her with energy work, light language, and channeling with protection, love, and clarity. Oh my gosh, y'all know I love this. Angelic Earth Resonance is for the new paradigm, the ascension, this new earth we are creating together because it is freeing, empowering, and accelerated. Amen. It works on a quantum level, alchemizing and initiating holistic healing, personal and spiritual growth, trauma integration, and karmic release. Jennifer offers session workshops, retreats, and trainings. Her website, and I'll go ahead and mention it and list it at the end of this podcast visually and audioly, is angelicearthresonance.com. Woo! What you think about that?
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't it neat to have someone read? Okay, I'm gonna say it like this way, and you comment, Jennifer. Neat to have someone read your bio because I've been doing this like as long as you have. And it is this culmination about, well, I learned this and I learned this. And now through the Great Awakening, it's all coming together. So how does it feel when someone reads that and you just go, wow, here we are. Look at that.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear you read it, especially with so much enthusiasm and the way you do it. Really beautiful. And I'm like, for the couple minutes, I'm like, wow, she talking about somebody else? Like, that's amazing. And, so thank you. It felt good to hear it. And it has been, many years of coming to this point. So I'm feeling like, let me receive that. Let me receive that excitement and joy inside of myself and just that moment. A lot of times we're just like doing and going and doing it and answering the call. And it just felt like a moment of me being like, yeah, just sit back and receive that for a second. Like, you've made it to this point. You've done all this work, you know?
And I feel like I hear you say that too, because I'm kind of guided, I guess you would say, in terms of these podcasts, in terms of where I'm supposed to go and talk about. I feel like today is going to be an appreciation moment for you, because this is big stuff that you're doing, and that we're going into this great awakening, and that there is so much up and down right now, and you are helping to pave the path, because I love everything that your work does in terms of, it's not only holistic healing and personal and spiritual growth, but it's about trauma integration, which is so important, and karmic release, like really having to, unfortunately, dig deep into all this junk that we have inside of us to be able to move forward. So it's hard stuff to do. And you not only certify people in what you do as well, which is totally great. All right. I want to ask you first off the bat, and this is typically my first question.
Yes.
The Great Awakening, how did it come to be for you? When did you start seeing it? When were you aware of it?
Oh, I just got chills. Whew, that was interesting. For me, I think on some level, it's literally been since childhood that I had a sense that something was coming. Very much, starseed, a typical starseed story, as people will say, of feeling like, whoa, where am I? What planet did I land on? I don't understand what's happening here. Understanding that there's some major, and then having contact with my guides and angels since I was little, and always being psychic, and just having kind of a sense that something is evolving, something is going to get better. And then when in my very early years, by the time I was 19, I was very clearly led to start studying energy work. And I did that before I studied massage therapy.
Okay,
And
so
so
wait a minute. Where are you from originally?
originally from the East Coast,
Okay. So
Virginia and Pennsylvania, kind of.
okay, all right. So I'm in Ohio right now. Even though I'm not from here, I totally understand that area. So at 19 years of age, okay, so we're going to back up for just a second. First, connecting with ascended masters and angels. What was your family like with that? Could you tell them that?
Yeah,
Okay,
when I
yeah.
was little, no, they're very, I love my parents dearly, but they're very, normal, so to speak.
Mhm.
My mom, bless her, really held space after a while. She could see that something, genuine would happen with me, and that I was tuned in a certain way. Um, and yeah, so it was a lot for them to, they really just were like, I think mostly concerned about me fitting in the world, they're like, will you please just be normal? Your life's going to be hard if you keep being weird. And and I really just couldn't help it, and it's fine. I'm totally comfortable with who I am now, of course, but
So what
it was,
would you do
it
back
was
then?
them kind of, well, I was just very psychic, and I was very tuned in, and I would, speak, I would hear things, see things, feel things. And of course I didn't know not to share them. I did learn not to share, but it kept happening. And so by the time I was 19, I took a semester at sea study abroad trip. I was in anthropology and an art history major. I was living in Pittsburgh, and I loved what I was doing and everything, but I took this, I was 19. I was like, I don't know where I want to focus my study, kind of thing. So I took a study abroad trip where we went around the whole world, basically, like a Christopher Columbus kind of journey. And it's called Semester at Sea. It's a study abroad program out of the University of Pittsburgh. It's incredible. It was an incredible experience. But from there, it really, stirred me and showed me that maybe I didn't want, any sort of traditional path. And I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was just being called from my heart. And I really knew that since I was a little girl, I had been out west once, and I knew that I wanted to go back out west, but I wasn't sure where, and I didn't know how to get there and all of that. So when I got back to Pittsburgh, I basically literally blindfolded myself, spun in a circle around a map of the United States, and just put my hand out with a marker and circled wherever. And I was like, I'm going wherever I circle. And I circled Arizona, and within a year I was in Arizona. And then through a series of which another, I'm not going to get into the whole story. I could probably write a book of how I got led to this psychic that introduced me to the first woman who taught me energy work. And I literally went to that psychic. I said, Spirit said, this man's going to tell you who your next teacher is. So I went to this psychic and I said, and I sat down and he, got into the zone to do his thing. And he instantly like opened his eyes and was like, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you here? You're very psychic yourself. You're just as psychic as me. He's like, what are you here for? I know that you're here for something specific and not the typical love, career, whatever. And I'm like, no, I was told you were supposed to tell me who my new next teacher is. And so who is
No
it?
pressure. No
No
pressure,
pressure.
but yeah.
And,
Okay, go
and
ahead.
he's like, when you walked in, I saw a face of a woman whose picture is on the wall, and they had a lot of teachers at this bookstore. It was like a new age bookstore. And so it was one of the, 50 pictures. He's like, I don't know her name, but let's go look. So we go look at the picture that he got, and it's this woman who was teaching energy work named Phyllis Winslow, actually. And so I went to her school. That's when I started training in energy work. And the reason I'm getting to this long thing to answer your question is that's where I first heard about the Great Awakening, is through Phyllis Winslow being trained at that energy work school in Tucson, Arizona, when I was 19 years old. So a while
Oh,
ago.
whoa. So would you not, well, like how long ago?
About 30 years ago.
Okay, that's pretty amazing because I know, like me, I've discussed being spiritual and a healer, but I didn't really know of the the gravity of things until the video. I heard someone use that the other day. I loved it. So you have been in the know for a long time.
Yeah, yes. It was interesting because Phyllis, I think she's in her 80s now. She moved back to the East Coast at
Mhm.
some point. Um, but yeah, she was, she's the first one. I don't know, how much you go into in the show. I'm not going, but she was,
Oh,
talking about the
go
Great
into it
Awakening.
all.
Okay, great. She
Yeah.
was talking about like the reptilians and the Great Awakening and the shift and the new earth and all of this. And I'm 19 years old, and I remember looking at her and thinking, I know she's a grounded, sane woman. Like, is she serious? Like reptilians, and so I heard a lot of things from her at that time that I just kind of went, I don't know. And I had so much respect for her and love for her, and she is like, I imagine is still like a very grounded woman, not woo woo, and even though she was teaching energy work, she was very grounded in the real world and so her talking about that stuff, I was paying attention, and she was talking about it a lot and what would be happening, and sure enough, here we are 30 years later, and it's been around 2020. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's happening. This is what she was talking about, and her the people she was connected to at the time.
Wow. So did you just kind of drink it in, use your discernment with it, and then when it started to come in front of your eyes, is that when you stated basically, "Oh my gosh, she totally knew what she was talking about," or yeah, how did that grow for you?
I think maybe it grew a little bit organically over time. Like, I kind of saw things she was talking about coming, because me being staying very I've always been very connected to my guides
Mhm.
and angels, and them kind of cluing me in of like, see that's coming, and that's what she was talking about, and and things like that. But by the time we got to 2020, it was like very clear what was happening, and I'm like, well, I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't know for sure. And sure enough, here we are in the middle of it all. So it's very interesting, and I this body of work is very much a new paradigm body of work. It's been channeled for that, and there's reasons for that I can say, but it's very interesting to me. Like, more confirmation of that is when the whole world was shutting down in 2020, this
Yes.
body of work was blooming and but breaking open, and it really floored me because I really thought that was the first big apprentice, or first like main apprenticeship I taught. The first one I taught was more experimental, like almost like, can I even teach this? And these people had asked me to teach them, so I was like, let me see if I can. So I went through the first year of training, kind of just getting my feet wet with it. And so then 2020 hits and all the craziness, and I'm thinking, oh well, certainly no one's going to want to sign on for a year apprenticeship in the midst of all this. And and spirit kept, and I kept saying, all my excuses of I don't have this organized and that, and all the resistance. And then I heard spirit say, and my guides say, just put out an email. Just put out an email. And I'm like, there's only 5 days until the apprenticeship would start. I'm like, I'm not putting out an email. I mean, it was literally, it might have even been less than 5 days. And I just kept hearing it. And usually by the third time, I give in and do what they say, or I agree. But they're like, put out an email. So I did. I was like, okay, I'm wasting my time, but I'm going to put out an email. So I put out an email announcing the apprenticeship. And within 24 hours, I had 15 responses. And I knew I wasn't planning to teach more than 8 people. So it was amazing. And so of course all those people, all the 15 people weren't a good fit or weren't aligned, and it worked out to be actually 7 people that year. But it was 2020 and 7 people signed on for this. And I was able to, and the work really broke open, and I really started to see that this is going to be part of, like, this body of work is definitely going to be part of the new paradigm healing energies. And I was saying from the very beginning, and I'm still saying as I downloaded this work, is that there are going to be a lot of bodies of work popping up on the planet that do similar things to what mine does, because it's what the planet needs. And I'm seeing that there's different styles of the same kind of thing coming up, and it's really beautiful because, right, not everybody vibes with the same people or the same styles of work, but the what I'm seeing is the ability, because when there is the activation of kundalini energy, which a lot of these bodies of work are starting to do, and light language itself can do, when this is a very consistent open thing that happens, we can release deep patterning from the unconscious mind, deep karmic patterning, ancestral clearing. So I saw that this was going to be popping up all over the planet because it's what humanity needs right now. And so I love that there's all these different, some are more scientific and they call it the, somatic wave or something, or something physical, and some are more woo woo, or like in different ways. I shouldn't say that maybe, but some are more alternative in different ways, some are more spiritual in different ways. And so I just kind of like, wow, look, spirit put this energy, this access back on the planet because it's time for it. And whoever you are, whatever your personality is, whatever your vibe, you can have access to this level of healing. um you know so I'm pretty excited about it.
Very, very awesome. And to tag onto that too, in the midst of this chaos, we are in the midst of a rebirth.
Yes.
So you talking about, well, this is happening, this is springing up, and this is from different sources, yet it's all from, from the same source. Uh,
Right.
So let me ask you about this too, for your angelic earth resonance to teach that, like you do offer a year apprenticeship, correct?
Yes.
And on your website, from what I saw, there are also people that have gone through your program that
Hmm.
you also highlight them.
Yes.
Okay, so you've been doing this since 2016, or it started in 2016? What was the exact process?
The body of work started developing through me in
Okay.
2016, 2015, 2016. When was it? I guess it was 2018 that. And I thought it was just going to be my body of work. I just started work, I've been a healer for so many years. I was just developing my style, which was a culmination of everything I've learned. But spirit started kind of showing me that I was going to teach it, and with really like blatant images, where I'm seeing chalk written in the air, like it's a chalkboard and stuff, and they're pointing at my hands, giving it a name for what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, you're showing me I'm going to teach this, but I still I'm not fully getting that. And so yeah, soon after I started getting those images and those downloads, a young woman came to me and said, I've been looking for you, I really want to learn exactly what you're doing, would you be willing to teach me? And I just felt a big yes with her. And so then, and that was around 2018, I think. And so then when I said yes to her, one of her friends was like, you said yes to her, and this is my qualifications and these are my gifts, and what do you think, can you teach me too? And I thought, well, it's easier to teach 2 of them than one of them, especially with body work, because then they can trade. And then, as it turned out, another person jumped on and was like, "What about me too?" And I was like, "Okay." So I ended up doing three people, working with three people that year. And it was a really amazing experience. I really, it was really enlightening for me to basically learn how to teach it through teaching these three people.
I know. So did it just come very naturally? Like, oh, what am I going to do today? And it just all sort of flowed, or what happened?
Yeah, well, I had to teach them basically, how to do what I'm doing. And so I took them, I let spirit guide me as always. I would just,
Mhm.
they would tell me what to teach them or show them that day. Um, though it was an interesting little dance when I got to the place where I realized that I had to teach them light language because I had started speaking light language organically in session and understood I was getting downloads of what was coming through, and I understood all of that. I didn't know what it was when it started happening. Somebody had to tell me it was light language.
I
So
see.
that's how it came to me. And I was very comfortable with channeling that way. So, but I was like, uh-oh, it just came to me. So I don't know how to show somebody how to do this. And so at that point, I was like, I'm going to go take a training from someone else. Even though I know how to do light language, I want to see how people teach this. And I assumed it was some sort of attunement, like Reiki. I had taught Reiki in the past. And so I was like, well, I imagine it's attunement, but let me go see. And so I did. I went to Sedona and I took a 4-day training with Jamie Price. I don't know
I
if
was
you're,
going to ask you. So I've had Jamie Price on the show before.
she's wonderful.
That's so
Loved her.
neat.
Loved her. It was so neat to be in a room with 50 people all speaking light language. There was a point where we all did it at once and it was just like, whoa, it was amazing. So it was a great experience, even though I was really adept at speaking light language and channeling it and channeling the healing energy with it and understanding getting the psychic information with it and all that. I hadn't really delved too much, allowed myself to delve too much into the singing aspect or into the writing at all. I hadn't written any light language before that class. I was writing it in the field. I wondered what I was doing because I was doing these huge things through people's energy fields. And Jamie had talked about that in her class too, that had happened to her. And I realized I was writing symbols in people's fields, but I was writing them really big. And so I didn't know what I was doing. So going to her class was great for me because I did learn all the different styles, which I hadn't done before, all of them. And it showed me, yes, you absolutely can activate this in other people. Not necessarily teach them because it's already inside of us. So it's more about awakening it and activating it in somebody else. And so I came back from that training and I activated the three students, and they were like, they were just so floored. They were like, wow. And the one girl who I already had known for a while, she was like, where has this been? Where has this been? And for me, it was like coming home. Like it was so strange when I did it. It felt like something from my childhood, and that like I had come home to myself in some way, and like I had been waiting literally since early childhood to do this. And it felt so amazing, and they, of course, they were activated a lot, which worked out great. They started speaking light language right away, pretty much that day when we worked with it.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was like, yay, this is the only part I wasn't sure about. And and we got it. And so yeah, so that's part of the training too. And I do teach light language outside of the apprenticeship as well. When I have the time and feel inspired, I do that, do small classes of that as well.
So your folks that suddenly started saying it. So for me too, it was very organic and piecemealed. I'm trying to think if I I did it with folks that I was just comfortable with. Like, oh,
Yeah,
there are these sounds that are coming up. I don't know what this means, but this is just coming. And
right.
then finding out exactly what it was. But knowing how strange it was initially, and knowing that you're three people suddenly just blah, how did they wrestle with that, or did they just go, oh, this is great, here we go?
I think they did pretty well with it. They didn't wrestle too much. They're all pretty amazing beings, They're all
Yeah.
really aligned with the work. So I wasn't surprised they were able to do it really easily. Um, and not everyone I teach it comes that easily too, but a lot of people it does, and other people it takes a little more time. Some people start off like with just saying a couple words, and I tell them just to keep going with that, and then it opens up into more kind of thing. But yeah, they did great. Every one of them were just very aligned to it, and it felt one of them. grew up in a church that spoke tongues. So it was kind of second nature for her. She'd been kind of speaking light language her whole life, and she knew it was outside of the energy of the tongues, the dogma. Um, it was just kind of her own soul language. She always felt that way. So for her, it was really like coming home too. For all of us, we all felt like we were coming home with it.
That's so neat. Okay, I have a couple different questions, different ways to go. Yeah, okay, two things. I would like to know one experience when you were a child that was just kind of mind-blowing. Okay, these are two big questions. Then I loved one of your articles about angels being fierce. I want to talk about that too. I don't know if these can kind of come together, but yeah, can you start with that?
Sure. What was the first question again? Oh, in the childhood, something.
Yeah, something that was just like kind of mind blowing or and knowing that there wasn't really anyone you could talk to about your experiences. Like, yeah, can you tell us one big thing?
Yeah. There were so many, of course.
Or
But
tell us many.
two are specifically coming to mind for some reason. So, I guess Spirit's showing me what's the first one I find to be significant is this interesting memory that I've had for a while because I was only, there are so many, like I said, but I was only probably 6 or 7 years old.
Mhm.
And I was playing with a friend, we ride our bikes around, and we were at her house. And I think you're familiar, most people are familiar with those, those green plastic coverings that cover electrical stuff
Mhm. Yeah.
that pop out of the ground. It's kind of just to protect the electrical stuff. So
Yeah.
it was one of those green things in her yard at the end of her driveway, and we were sitting in the gravel around it and playing in the gravel. And so this was in Virginia, and there was a ton of quartz in the gravel. And so here we were, 6 or 7 years old, little pieces of quartz, of
Yeah.
just regular clear quartz, and which you can find out here too, but especially it was in the gravel then. Anyway, so we're digging around, playing in the dirt, playing in the gravel like kids do. And suddenly it's weird that I remember this even. Suddenly I got this, I guess it was, well, now I know it to be a download. And I did feel my guides and angels around me a lot, specifically what I know now to be Pleiadian. Um, a couple in particular were kind of like brighter, like I could almost see them a little more clearly, but I just thought of them as angels. I didn't know about star beings or any of that. They just had that angelic vibe, so I knew they were that level and safe, and I never was afraid of them. And so anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm suddenly like, hey, to the girl, to my friend, and I'm like I'm like, you do you see this? And like I held up this tiny little quartz crystal, and I'm like, this can carry energy and information. I'm literally telling her this whole thing, and the whole time it's coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking, how do I know this? Where's this coming from? Is this true? And so I was explaining to her how basically how quartz can use electricity and work with technology and hold information and carry information and store information. I'm telling her all about this crystal. And I was holding it. I kept, because I was so little too, and yeah, I kept putting it against the green electrical thing, trying to do something. I was like, I know I can do something here. And and of course I didn't have all the pieces or all the information, but just that I knew, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was something about that quartz stone and the ability and something with electricity. And it was just so interesting. And of course my friends looking at me like, you're making it up and you're whatever, she just thought I was playing. But then I remember going home and talking to my mom about it because it was potent. Like, for me to remember this all these years later, I still remember it because it was such a clear download.
Right.
And I remember talking to my mom afterwards about it and her getting that look that she often got, of like, oh boy. And she's like, well, that's true. We use quartz in watches, and so she kind of, and maybe that's why I remember it, is like fought right behind it was a validation of like, that wasn't you just making something up. This is actually real science, real technology. And so that was kind of an interesting moment that I remember. A lot of
Yeah.
things like that happened, but I felt like that was a very, it always kind of stood out in my brain. I've always remembered that one for some reason.
Oh my gosh. So when these events would happen to you, okay, what in terms of you knowing these things, I can't safely tell me if I'm saying this correctly for you. I can't say this safely to other people. When did you realize I need to put a cap on some things? Or I
You
can't
mean,
say this, or people will
oh,
not understand this.
yeah, what age does that kind of thing happen? Probably right around that same age.
Mm.
I remember hearing what I specifically remember that triggered me was I remember like watching shows, like different movies or different instances where people would make that statement. Well, she was hearing voices, and if they're she was hearing voices, so we had to lock her up, and so there was that like, and it was that statement or that concept that would started coming into my awareness of like, I hear voices, am I crazy? And I see things, am I crazy? And then the same guides that I felt very safe with, that I knew were like God or angels or whatever to me, were basically like, no, you know the truth and you know the difference. And then I did go through a period in my life, which I'm not, going to go full into now, where I did have some of that confusion, where I had some actual brain chemistry issues due to some environmental things. And so that was an interesting test for me to see that, yeah, in fact, hallucinations and delusions do feel different, and they do look and feel a lot different than an actual vision and than an actual channeling. And so it was more, that strange period of my life was more confirmation in that, of like, no, I've never been delusional. This has always been real. And I knew it because part of why they said that is they're like, it because the information is true. Like they would tell me things and it would either be happening for real or it would be very helpful. They'd be telling me how to survive a situation or escape a situation or help
Oh,
someone else in a situation, and or to say something to someone to make them feel better, and it would. And so I learned to trust these voices because I knew they were love. They were based in love. And it was interesting to me, and it might have been part of being geared and wired for what I'm here to do. But did have, like, through the years connecting with other psychics and things, I did have several psychics say to me, like, well, how do you know you can trust that voice? And I'm like, it was strange to me because it never occurred to me. Like my entire life, I've known what voices to trust and which ones not to. I can tell from the resonance. And so it's very interesting. And so I don't know if that's something that happens if it develops later or what, but I feel fortunate in that. When I got asked that question so many times, I was like, oh, thank goodness that isn't something I've had to worry about.
mhm.
It's always been this. I know it's been true because it has always shown to be helpful and healing and loving and true. So
Oh, that's so good. All right. Then, yeah, tell us about angels being fierce.
angels, angels. I love angels. So, and so this is very interesting, and maybe you can relate to this too, Eden. It's like,
Okay.
I was never the fluffy angel person. Like I'm not a fluffy angel person. Like I've experienced a whole lot of trauma, like in this life, and healed a lot too, but I'm not delusional about the fluffy side. I don't believe it's all puppies and
Oh,
rainbows and
because
unicorns.
it ain't.
Because I know it's not, and so
Yes.
I was in nothing, not to say that the angel heal people are like that, but I was always kind of veering away from the soft angel visions and Christian, the more Christian or cherubs, or I don't know. I don't want to put down Christianity. I'm not saying that at all, but just that's more stereotypical vision of angels and the angel healers and angel things. I was never drawn to it. Doreen Virtue, like I liked her back in the day. We'll say that back in the day. But it wasn't my thing. So when my guides very specifically said angelic earth resonance, and I was like, angelic? Like, are you serious? We're putting angel in the name? Really? I'm gonna be in like one of those, and and here I am activating Kundalini and speaking light language, and I'm like, angelic? I thought of like angelic as softer, clouds floating, pastel colors. We have that like stereotype of angels. And so they're like, no, this is the name. It's encoded. Don't argue, basically. So
So, Jennifer, we don't want to hear your remarks. We can, but this is it. Like fierce, like come on, woman, step it up.
Right. Well, well, and so one of the angels that was very strongly behind the body of work, it was Metatron, one of the archangels.
Mhm.
Metatron was one of the ones behind there. So, and I knew that I had gotten messages around that. So I thought, well, maybe because of Metatron, it's angelic. So what I came to discover is, I got a whole new education on the word angelic, on the meaning of angelic or what it means to me. And I found that, we think of angels as soft and fluffy, and yes, they are very loving, and they can be so nurturing and fluffy and compassionate and soft when that's what we need. But they're also warriors and they're fierce and they're powerful, and they're nothing to mess with, to say the least. And yeah, so they have a power that is so that undeniable, I guess, is what I want to say. But what they started to show me too is that I had been, looking at the stereotypical Christian angels, what I see in the Bible, and even the archangels, um, things like that, and or Judeo-Christian, I should say. And so but they showed me, they're like, no, there's an angelic realm. There's a frequency that these beings resonate in, and there are a lot of beings that resonate within the angelic frequency. And so this is what I started to discover, that a lot of these star beings that we connect with, that on a high level, who are here for the highest good, they're in an angelic frequency. The ones that were talking to me when I was little from the Pleiades, there's a reason I felt like they were angelic, because they are, but they're not like our stereotypical angels or the archangels. There's different like types of beings in this angelic frequency, is what they taught me. And so there's dragons there, there's unicorns there, there's insectoids there, there's Pleiadians, Syrians, Andromedans, there's all kinds of beings there. And maybe not all of those beings, maybe not all of, not every dragon in the universe, not every Pleiadian in the universe, but there is an angelic realm. And it's about tapping into that. And that is where our higher selves vibrate as well, when we talk about earth angels and embodying our light. And so that's what they started to show me, is that this body of work helps us embody our angelic self, or our light, or our higher self, bring our expansive, eternal, universal radiance into this embodied experience for the ascension, for ourselves, for Gaia, for all of humanity. And so in order to do that, like, you have to be fierce. Like, to hold the light is not for the weak. And it's interesting how people a lot of times will take that quote from the Bible of like, the meek will inherit the earth. And so some people have alluded to that being now the people who know how to open their hearts and live in love and come into unity consciousness. Because it's not about, because the old paradigm will say that meek is weak. And the new paradigm is like, no, to be humble, to be vulnerable, to be full of love and compassion is strong, is strength, is fierce, is what is going to build our lives going forward in the higher consciousness that we're moving into. And so, we have to move as a collective, even. We have to move through these shadows. We have to move through these experiences. And so there's a fierceness that comes through, an ability to fight with love, or for the highest calling of love.
That is so well spoken, because, when I first came into resonance with the Great Awakening, that it and knowing it was a battle, which before then I was like, oh, you battle, there's not a battle. You battle what you what's the wording I'm trying, it totally escapes me. You fight against yourself. It's all
Oh,
about a
right.
fight against yourself. Yet this is not a fight against yourself. And to because okay, tell me what you think of this. I feel the evil is so strong. And again, I've said in other podcasts before, I was again light and dark versus, oh, Satan and evil. Now I'm like, oh my God, Satan, evil. It is so mean, so tangible, that in order to be the opposite of that, you have to be this warrior of light. For me, I've stood up, said things that I never thought I would say or embody. And
Hmm.
this fierceness. Ooh, I like saying this. That, yeah, I am, in this small little body, whatever you want to call it, I'm this fierce woman that you, oh my God, that you can't sway me. You can't knock me off my balance, Because same like with you, I've been through some stuff.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's been hard stuff, but it's been stuff that has shown me the light and shown me the truth of the world and the truth of me. I wouldn't exchange it for anything, no matter how hard it was at the time.
Yeah,
Would you agree with that? Ooh,
I totally agree with that. Yes. I have to say some of the things from childhood, if I could go back, I would not do, not experience. But I'd also trust that it's all perfect. Like it all brought me to who I am in this moment. And I'm grateful for my whole life. So yes, I do agree with you. And I would like to add on to what you're saying,
yeah.
the perspective of, because what I teach of going into presence, the activation of Kundalini is coming into oneness. It is coming into unity consciousness. It is coming into the understanding that in truth, we are not separate. We are all one. We are all connected. And so the beautiful piece to that is you really are only responsible for yourself. And so you do your own healing by facing our own darkness. We do heal the entire world because
Mhm.
we are the entire world. And so and it really works that way, even just in resonance, even just as you clear your darkness and the vibration raises, you face this pattern, you let go of this ancestral issue, you do this, you do that, whatever. As you're clearing and raising your frequency, everyone in the world feels that on some level, especially the people who are directly connected to you in your life. And so, we really only have to heal ourselves and stay responsible and in love and in integrity in ourselves. And yeah, speak our truth when it feels aligned, when it feels like that's what is in our highest good to do in that moment. So I would say healing yourself is enough. I'd say it's everything.
I would agree. So I probably like with you, a lot of people come to me and go, "Oh, this is really selfish that I'm doing this." I'm like, "Oh no, it is selfless." Same
That's right.
thing. You healing yourself heals the world. It's so much bigger than just you, yet it is all about you. It's all these dichotomies that we go through. All right, I'm going to look at the time right now. Is I do want to go into the Just Be practice in a second because we talked about before offline that you're going to lead us in an experience that relates to your angelic earth resonance. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Because I think having people be able to see some of that is key. Yet before we go into that, is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or shall we just go?
Well, I just want to say one more thing to what you just said too, because it's
Yeah.
something that comes up in my class. So in the apprenticeship, I'm teaching my body of work, but we also do talk a lot about the ascension energies and what's happening in the ascension and different things, not forcing any thoughts or ideologies on anyone, but just bringing it up to awareness and discussion. And so as far as when you're talking about the evil, and the magnitude of what we're seeing and happening, even though, has always been here, it's just getting more, fighting harder, getting bigger in our
Yes.
face more, basically. Um, so what the way I've been looking at that, because there are so many differing opinions, and I do feel differing stories, and I do feel that that's intentional. I feel like the division is intentional. And so the way I've just been looking at it and sharing with people is, as far as the evil or they or the dark forces, I'm just saying duality. We are we're facing duality. There's a force that is the opposite of love that is pushing against us. And so what are we doing? We're learning how to embody oneness. We're learning how to dissolve the illusion of separateness. And it's not an easy ride for any of us, but I've just been calling it duality because I feel like it kind of
Makes
cuts away all the
neutralizes it.
stories. Yeah, it's like we're just in this dualist, very like heightened polarity right now. And so that whatever that dark energy is, wherever it's coming from, whatever you believe, it's doing its job to basically push us into the next level.
And then let me say onto that too, it's doing a very good job.
Oh my gosh, is it ever?
And to also say within that, we are that as well. We are not separate
Right.
from that. That's one of the pieces of this work is the karma and the trauma integration is realizing you're dark, you're light, you're all of it. We're not
Right.
separate from any of this stuff.
Nope. We might not be choosing it, but we're not
Right.
separate from it. Yeah.
Amen. All right. I think that's a great lead in. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, I love everybody's who comes on the show, their own way of seeing things, their own way. Because just like you said, it's so neat to hear all these different perspectives, yet they all lead towards the same thing, which is
Right.
awesome. All right, you go, Jennifer. What's next? What's next?
Okay.
Just be practice.
Okay, so well, I will give you a little taste of the energy of angelic earth resonance. I'll do just this short meditation, light language activation. So, because a light language activation doesn't always include toning or breaths or different things that I might do as I'm channeling in presence for you. So just so you know, that's part of angelic earth resonance. It's not just straight light language. So I don't know what's going to come through. I always just surrender. I'll just intend that energy transmission come through for healing and for the highest good for anyone who tunes in.
Beautiful.
Okay. And I always take off my glasses. I have no idea why. It's like I can't do it with them on. I don't know.
I'll take off mine too. Let's go.
There you go.
All right.
Okay. All right, so go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in to the center of your being. Exhaling out any tension you may be holding right now. Taking another deep breath in, feeling your heart space soften and expand. Allow yourself to keep breathing in a comfortable, cleansing way throughout this transmission. Know that you are protected and safe, and that you will only receive what is for your highest good in this moment. And so it is. Miara karot ish nesat res kunga et inita anan. Lariat rekiat anarasan. Jarakura eti alokut inesung anana. Ita zaros akish amayo maniana. Elohim anana krat kis retira sora shike etnikre sung manana de sut alohiat resiat akorsh kalariat nano manana sin de kureterit kunatet kash alat emene kurak et isara sandiki ishresit kira onda karasait roson nesh neshanasat neseret kuras umbrat Mira mira nat niet sus. Feshas ken kuset ita nero sungares. Sana kia kom enes edia sun. Brasu ser nunat et kia sos eva yeti anun. Ishara set kunga isha amun. Feel your heart chakra healing and expanding, releasing tension and stories of the past, receiving encoding of love and light, remembrance of the truth of your power and your beauty, of your wisdom and of your freedom. Allow yourself to expand into this remembrance. Sharia so ku era sanga ishe is. Enara nara kura kiatona narasi. Shh. Nandu kush. Leros. You are ancient. You are encoded with the light of the divine, now and always. Sananda laneres akush, misara sut alerorok ush, indarea sora sarason de kere sut, menon kum, menaka, isha, Elohim, ara, des, adesakom, enena sonona sarose. Iras Elohim Ana. Know that you have received all that you need for your highest good in this moment. That the codes and the activations are awakened within you now and will be integrated perfectly in divine timing for your highest good and for the highest good of all. Thank you. Nasaria orotea sus sabayo atunaka neshi ana. Blessed be. And you can slowly come back whenever you're ready.
Oh gosh. I had, especially the end of that, and there was one other that my whole face started activating. Like, I'm curious to, I'll watch this back just to see if it can be seen. I mean, there was a part in my head, and then literally visually on my face, it was just woo.
Wow.
That was some good stuff.
Yeah,
All right,
felt good to me too.
here's where I get my heart. So I will not play music on that. So you'll already listen to it, because sometimes I play music when the practice is being done, but yet it feels like you really need to be able to tune into that and not to have anything else interfere with it. Jennifer, so I feel like I do this with almost every guest on here, but it's legitimate. So it's not just like, oh, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being here, sharing what you do, sharing that beautiful experience with all of us, knowing it's just not a meditation. I mean, it's just not a meditation. It was really fabulous.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being a warrior. Thank you for, just standing up and, and I am seeing there are more and more people that are standing up, and there are those of us who have been doing this for a long time who are leading the path, and the younger ones are just blossoming into it so quickly, which is wonderful. I stay with me for a second so we can have our one-on-one goodbye. Yet again, thank you so much, and I don't know what else to say.
Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to share. I always love to share. So I appreciate it.
Oh, and let me add this. One of my Bjorn, who will be on the podcast next week, is how I got linked to Jennifer. So she's is one of Jennifer's apprentices, let's say, and Bjorn and I are in a sacred economy together. So I know a lot of people that I've had on the show are in the sacred economy with me. So stay tuned for that. All right, see y'all, hear y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.